All right, welcome back. This is section 3 from chapter 4 of the textbook, The Americans. We're going to talk about the early stages of the American Revolution after the Declaration of Independence. The title of this section is Struggling Towards Saratoga. And the reason they use that title is because Saratoga will be determined to be the turning point of the war for most people. After a series of setbacks, American forces will win at Saratoga and, of course, survive. We're here today to testify to that. In the summer of 1776, shortly after independence, the British, along with their Hessian mercenaries, and Hesse is a state in Germany. So when you hear the term Hessian, they're generally referring to German mercenaries, including ones that might not be from Hesse. So you have British and foreign troops taking over an American city, basically an English-speaking city. During this, the city caught fire. Most people actually believe the British didn't set fire to the city, but things that happened during the panic when they took over caused it. Many of Washington's new recruits were killed, and Washington and his army retreated to Pennsylvania. After the defeat at New York, it appeared that before the war even started, it might be over. But in Christmas of 1776, Washington knew that the German soldiers, the Hessians, and some people say Hussians, were camped out in Trenton, New Jersey. He knew that the Germans like to drink a lot, especially on holidays. And he had a gut feeling that if they attacked on Christmas, they would either be drunk or hungover. And the Germans, on the other hand, felt like there's no way they can get to us because the Delaware is frozen pretty much. It'll be hard for them to get across. However, Washington, and you've seen this famous picture, Washington actually succeeded in defeating the Hessians at Trenton. And 8 days later, after defeating the Hessians at Trenton, the Americans would win the Battle of Princeton. Then you had a British victory, the Battle of Brandywine Creek. The British under General Howe wanted to, and some people say Howe, but I've always pronounced it Howe, wanted the American capital in Philadelphia. They felt if they had the capital, then the new country would be defeated. However, the Continental Congress was given time to flee, and they fled the city. Washington tried to block the British from entering the city at the Battle of Brandywine Creek. Though Washington lost, he gave more time for Congress to flee. Shortly after that, however, the war moved more to the middle states because the British pretty much had control of New York and the surrounding area, including Philadelphia. General John Burgoyne led the British south from Canada. And evidently, he was the biggest loser in the British army as far as losses to Americans, even though he had won several battles against the French. He was surrounded at Saratoga, and he surrendered to General Horatio Gates. Present at the battle was General Benedict Arnold, who most strategists believe was probably more responsible for the victory than Gates, but he was denied this credit. Another reason that Arnold felt that Washington personally disliked him. Arnold's wife was really upset about him not getting credit for the battle as well, and this will lead to sow seeds of treason, I guess you could say, or disunity. In 1776, after the Battle of Saratoga, the French, who Benjamin Franklin had been working on, he was the ambassador to France, said, the Americans could win. And in February 1778, they agreed to recognize American independence, sign a treaty of assistance and military alliance with the United States, and agreed that they would not have a separate peace with Britain until Britain recognized the independence of the United States. The winter of 1777 and 1778 seemed to be the most troublesome for the American army. Of 10,000 soldiers, 2 or 1 in 5 died of cold or hunger. However, at Valley Forge, 2 foreign commanders arrived. The Marquis de Lafayette from France and Baron von Steuben from Prussia, which was another German state, the largest. Lafayette simply wanted to further his military career, and he didn't see opportunities in France, while von Steuben actually was kicked out of the Prussian army because of the fact that he was a homosexual. And as a result of that, he goes to America, where he's embraced by the American army. While they were at Valley Forge, von Steuben is credited with shaping this ragtag group of militiamen into an army. Well, like any army, they have to be paid. So Congress sold bonds to investors and foreign governments. They printed paper money, but the paper money was considered worthless and caused inflation. Few U.S. weapons factories or munitions factories were available, so they had to buy arms from other countries, mainly France and Spain, and they had to run the naval blockade to do so. Some officials engaged in profiteering, that is, selling scarce goods for profit, and that drove up the price. Two gentlemen who helped actually use their own money and their own credit to raise money were Robert Morris and Haym Salomon. It's interesting to take note as we talk about diversity that Haym Salomon was actually of Jewish descent, and he helped raise money to pay the Continental Army. Unfortunately, this sometimes lends conspiracy theorists to have all kind of anti-Semitic comments, which is wrong. Civilians at war. While husbands went off to fight, most women stayed home to manage the homes and businesses. However, some followed the troops, especially those without children, and they would help cook, mend uniforms, and some even fought. Thousands of African American slaves escaped to the cities and the frontier. About 5,000 African Americans served in the Continental Army, but most Native Americans stayed out of the conflict. Those who didn't, for the most part, supported the British. The one exception to that was the Iroquois League, which several members of the league backed the British while others backed the U.S., basically ending the Iroquois League as a functioning confederacy. That concludes Section 3. We'll begin Section 4 next, Winning the War.